Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with Christopher Rausch, where we help you overcome your self-created crap without the self-help fluffy bullshit. Now please welcome our host, Christopher Rausch.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show. I was just getting myself re-energized for this evening. Thank you guys all for joining us here in the Raw and Unscripted show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, your No Excuses coach. I'm excited to be here tonight. Got a lot of energy. I was just listening to Ministry. In case you don't know who Ministry is, check it out. Psalm 69. It's one of the most badass albums out there. If you are in a funk and you need some energy, you listen to Ministry, Psalm 69, and I guarantee you're going to have some energy in your bones, because what is life without energy? And I got to be honest with you guys. I'm going to come clean with you here as the No Excuses coach. I've been accepting mediocrity lately, probably for the last 6 months. I just did a vulnerable post on Facebook and just talked about the fact that my health is not where it should be. Even though I'm 55 years old and I look good and I've got a lot of energy, I'm not at my peak. And I realized that. I took a look in the mirror and I realized my belly was getting a little tubby. Got on the scale at the doctor's office. I was 226 instead of 210. And I was like, oh shit, holy crap, I got some work to do. And I've also been a little bit lazy in my tasks. And I found that I've kind of slowed down as I've gotten a little bit older, but that is not acceptable. Bob Donnell, who is my dear friend, you guys have been following me on Facebook. You guys know he is in a world of situation right now, health-wise. And Bob says, when it becomes acceptable, it becomes inevitable. And so I'm sending love to you, Bob. I don't know if you're watching or listening, but I'm sending massive love and strength to you. I've been sending you videos. I've been doing testimonies. I appreciate you. I love you. You got this, because you are unstoppable. And everybody who's watching and listening, who can hear my voice in 28 plus countries, when you decide that you're no longer going to accept that mediocrity, when you decide that it's not acceptable to be X, right? And you start changing your modalities, you start changing your mind. Guess what? Day by day, I just did a TikTok post yesterday that got a bunch of views. Just not today. 3 words. Maybe you're not going to eat as much today. Maybe you're going to exercise more today. Maybe it's just not today. You're going to take that pill. You're going to take that drink. You're going to do whatever it is. And then progressively, not overnight, but progressively, you are going to get stronger and you're going to gain clarity. As a matter of fact, I told you guys I quit drinking for a year. Recently, I decided that I was going to start having beer. And I've noticed already the sluggishness. I've already noticed the mind a little bit. And I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it. So just not today, just not today, just not today. It's been 7 days since I've taken any pain medication. Feeling better. Just got a bunch of stuff done in the studio. I'm excited for my show tonight. Just not today. And you guys can do this. So I'm here to tell you that sometimes we slip up and sometimes we start to get on that downward spiral and we say, oh, we're going to do it January 1st. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, I don't feel like it right now. But stop yourself, because your health, your mental health, your spiritual health, your physical health, that is the most important. And when you think about what your legacy is and what you want to live for, that's why I show up here every single week in the Raw and Unscripted show. We've been going for, I think this is episode, this is episode, where'd it go? 293? 293. So this is the 293rd episode. We're almost to our 300th episode. Massive value. Taking you on a journey. And tonight, speaking of journeys, we have an amazing show for you tonight, because this is something that I have been exploring for probably at least 4 years. And what's up, Robert Broker? We got Robert in the house. What's up? Hey, from Canada. Thank you for being here, brother. And if you guys are watching live or on the replay, feel free to ask us questions during this broadcast. This is an opportunity for you to get some information, because tonight we're going to be talking about plant-based medicine. And I say plant medicine or medicinal medicine. Some people may call it psychedelic medicine. We've had my guest on the show before. He was on, in June? We had an amazing conversation talking about life, talking about the mindset, and talking about how we can unfuck ourselves. And during that conversation, he talked about psychedelics, or maybe it was after that. And I said, I would love for you to come back on, because I've never had, in 293 episodes, I don't think I've ever had that conversation where we've specifically addressed plant medicine or psychedelic medicine. And it's something that's been around for a long time. If you've ever studied marijuana and its uses back in the 60s, and LSD and the studies and the different things they found that it did for depression, it's pretty crazy what it is that it can do when we talk about mental health. And that is super important. So please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Sam Liebowitz. What's up, Sam? Good evening. Welcome to the Raw Unscripted show.
Thanks so much, Christopher. I really appreciate you having me back on your show.
Yeah, we had such a great conversation, dude. Seriously. I mean, we could have gone for another couple of hours. I'm not a Joe Rogan guy where I could go for 4 hours. That long. That's probably my problem. I've had so many people say, "Oh, I wish you would go longer," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can't sit still that long." I'm looking for about an hour, then I got to get up and move around. So maybe I would have to stand up. But anyways, welcome tonight. I have had the opportunity here. Holy shit. Hang on a second. We got Ronald Krieger in the house. What's up? Dude, it's been a long minute from Canada. Ron and I used to hang out in Clubhouse back in the day when it first started, when it was not corrupt and a bunch of bullshit. Ron, thank you so much for being here, man. It's a pleasure to have you here. Robert says, hi, Sam Liebowitz. Robert's always a staunch supporter of the show. And so tonight, the conversation, I'm sorry, I've got a bunch of energy. I was listening to Ministry before the show, as you heard, and I was just like, now I'm just like ready to go mosh. Talk to us. What do you want to get across most to people tonight? Because some people may find it, a little controversial. They, that's drugs, and you shouldn't do drugs. We've heard that throughout, our lives, depending on how old you are. What do you want to get across most tonight? And then let's dive into that conversation.
Sure. Can I relate back, though, to your opening for a second?
Oh, 100%. What, my air guitar?
So one of the biggest lessons for me that doing the plant medicine work has taught me over the years is self-care. And that's really what you were talking about when you were talking about being the best you can physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. It's really about caring for ourselves, valuing ourselves, and knowing that we have something unique and precious to bring to life. And that when we do that, we're naturally going to start taking better care of ourselves. We're naturally going to drink less, smoke less, imbibe less. We're naturally going to start eating healthier. And so that's why it's so important to be open to sometimes different ways of doing it. Because I wasn't even looking for this stuff when it found me. I always say, the work found me. I didn't find it.
It kind of calls to you, right?
Well, it's sort of just, I've told the story once or twice that I got this text from a friend of mine on a Friday afternoon. My wife happened to be away at a conference. She never went to a conference before or since. I didn't have any workshops planned. I didn't have anything to do. And I'd look at this text and it's like Open Heart Sacrament Community Open House. And this long paragraph that was so obtuse, I had no idea what he was talking about. But I look at the address and it was 7 blocks from where I live. So I was like, well, it's right in my neighborhood. I don't have anything else to do. I'll go check it out. So I go there and I finally learned it's all about plant medicine work. And I'm like, yeah, thanks, but no thanks. Puking all night long in a bucket is not my idea of a spiritual experience.
I did that. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that. I did that.
But I was walking the 7 blocks back to my apartment and I'm thinking to myself, this is the only weekend in the entire year. I don't have anything planned out. My wife's not around. There's nothing going on. I actually have space to say yes. And, I was predisposed against it because I've studied under different spiritual teachers, different spiritual groups and traditions. And they were all kind of negative against the idea of using substances. But I thought, you know what? I can try it once. Once isn't going to damage my soul for all eternity. And if I don't like it, I don't know any of these people except my friend who invited me. So I never have to see any of them again. So I call him up the next morning. And I'm like, okay, Alex, pick me up. I'll go. I'll check it out. I'll see what it's all about. And I go and I have this huge experience. I felt like by the end of the night, I had this 1,000-pound weight on my shoulder that I've been carrying around my whole life that I didn't even know was there. And I finally dropped it. And it wasn't that the content that was coming up for me was anything new or different. I was aware of it. I'd worked on it. I'd done energy work on it. But somehow I was still holding on to the energy of it.
Yeah.
and my wife could tell. She comes back from the conference, she starts responding to me differently. She knows I'm different. She's really curious. I tell her about it. I'm like, hey, they're doing another one next month, why don't you come? And she's like, no, I'm Chinese, we don't do drugs. And I'm like, no, it's medicine, it's not drugs. But she was curious and she was open and she kept asking me about it until finally I said, look, I don't know what else to tell you. You just got to come to the next one. And she finally did. And she was super nervous. God bless her soul. Yeah. And by the end of the night, she was just like, oh my God, that was like getting 10 years. And she's a therapist. It was like getting 10 years of therapy in one night. And
what did you guys do? I gotta interrupt. I gotta know what was the modality, because we're going to talk about the ones that I've researched and kind of go deep on that. But what was that? What did you guys do?
So and it's the lineage I ended up joining, but it's a very special lineage where it's not just one thing, where it's actually the gentleman who came up with this lineage came here from Peru 50 years ago, and he's created like 20 to 30 different formulas that we look at. Where does it fall on the spirit wheel, not what plant is this? So there's heart medicine, there's body medicine, there's mind medicine, there's spirit medicine. And so my first exposure was really heart medicine. Now, keep in mind, I had done psychedelics as a kid.
Heart as a physical heart, or heart of like love?
Heart of emotions, or emotions, or heart, or yeah, I mean, physical heart too, but like our emotional center.
Okay, and cool. I just wanted to clarify that for everybody.
And I'd done psychedelics back in high school. I'd done LSD many times. I'd done mescaline, peyote, all kinds of stuff, but I'd never had an experience like this. Yeah, because it was the first time I had done things in a sacred, facilitated manner. And I tell you, when the container is strong, when you do things in a sacred way, it is such a different experience. It takes you to totally different places, and it has a completely different effect on you.
Mm-hmm. I love that you shared that. So we'll dive into that for a second. Yeah, my experience was almost kind of the similar weird thing. I hired a health nutritionist years ago, and we become good friends. And I did the whole thing. She took me to Trader Joe's. She's like, oh, here's what to pick out. And, we did the whole thing for a year. And I still wasn't feeling, I was looking for this inner peace. And I would work out, I would drink, I tried all these different things, marijuana, I read books on inner peace, read books on spirituality. I tried to meditate. I did all that stuff, but there was still some sort of like disconnect. And I was telling her, like, I still get chills when I think about that. I'm like, there's some sort of disconnect. And that's where, I knew about marijuana. I knew about LSD. I've heard about peyote from the movies. But beyond that, I really didn't understand that there was ayahuasca and there was DMT and there was all these different other modalities, Cambo. And so she reached out to me one day and she said, oh, hey, Chris. And she lives in Arizona now. She's like, hey, Chris, I'm coming to California and I'm going to be doing what's called a medicine ceremony. And she goes, it's called Cambo. And I'm like, what do you mean? What are you talking about? She goes, well, it's psychedelic medicine. And I'm like tripping out, like acid? And she goes, yeah, in a way, but in a controlled environment with somebody who facilitates and da-da-da. I'm like, no fucking way. I did acid when I was 18 years old. It's the only time I ever did it. It was a horrible experience. I was fucking just petrified in my body. I said, no, thanks. Don't want to do that. Have a nice time. And she's like, no, Chris, there's different types. And she goes, this one's actually a short acting one. And she goes, it's more of a cleanse rather than a psychedelic trip. And she goes, it's probably good exposure for you because it's only about 45 minutes. It's going to not be comfortable, but it's going to give you an idea of what you can do with medicine to try to cleanse your soul and try to cleanse your body and try to get that clarity and that purpose in your life. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I said, let me think about it. I said, what's it called? She goes, Cambo. And I said, like Kambo. And she said, yeah. So it was in a couple of weeks. And I just dove head deep into the research. I was watching YouTube videos after YouTube videos. And I was like, oh my God, like you said, puking in a bucket. I'm like, oh, fuck it. What the hell am I going to do that for in front of a bunch of strangers? Are you kidding me? But these people would sit there and say, they would show the whole ceremony and they would come back and be like, oh my God, I feel so much better. I feel so much peace. Okay. 2 weeks later, here's how I'm feeling. My skin's better. Da-da-da-da. And I was like, all right, I've never tried it. Try something once, see what happens. So I called her up and I said, let's go. So she came to California. She gave me the address. I went down there on a Saturday. It was in the deepest part of Los Angeles where everybody has bars on their windows. And I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm going to some pub. Jesus Christ. And I'm like, just talk ready to turn around and go, nope, I ran out of gas. But I said, Chris, commit to it, follow it through. You're being called here for some sort of reason. So give this experience an opportunity. So I parked the car, go up to the house, walk inside, very beautiful inside. The neighborhood wasn't nice, very beautiful inside. She explains the ceremony. And I was like, all right, so you're going to do what? And she said, yeah, basically we're going to burn holes. I still have the holes because you know what I'm talking about. So I'm basically going to burn holes with incense with this. And we're going to put this Amazon tree frog poison into your system. And here's what's going to happen. We're also going to give you some, I think it was called Sunanega. They blew tobacco smoke up my nose. They put weird eye drops in my eyes. I fucking threw up. And I was like, what did I get myself into? And then she says, basically, you're going to start to feel hot. You're going to feel like you're in an inferno. You're going to puke into the bucket. You're going to see like it's going to be green. It's going to be like yellow and all these things. And I'm like, there was 4 other people in the place, including my friend Linda. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, what did I do? I'm ready to run out of there. And I'm like, no, Chris, commit to it. Right? These people are here. They're scared. We're all going to experience this. It's only 45 minutes to an hour. And so I commit to the process, go through that, like I just explained. And on the other side, we're all sitting around having fruit and having some food and talking about it. And I was like, okay, I did it. And I'm glad I did it. Whoops. Where'd you go? Okay. So I'll just finish telling the story to you guys. So as I was driving home, normally probably 99.9% of the time, I'm listening to music all the time. I was listening to music when we started the show, listening to music in the truck. I drove home. There was a bunch of traffic. I drove home for an hour and I didn't listen to any music. I was just looking around. And when I was looking around, based on the eye drops, I guess, and everything else that they gave me, based on that, he's back. I was just finishing telling the story. And I was realizing that I'll catch you up in a second. I was looking around and I was like, wow, I've never been this peaceful driving. And I got home and I told my wife, she goes, how was it? And I was fucking crazy. Told her all about it. Jesus Christ, where's this guy going? Anyways, so I go back a second day, do the same thing over again. And I got to tell you, it provided so much clarity and it helped me like find more peace in my heart. And so I've never done anything else. Well, actually, yes, I have done anything else. Please stop doing that. You're driving me crazy. The other thing I've also experimented with is psilocybin. So all that said and done, one of the questions I have for you is, what is, I had to write these down. What exactly are plant and psychedelic medicines and how do they differ from traditional medications? Can you hear me?
Hey, Chris, I don't know if you can hear me or not, but I'm not hearing you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I don't know what you did.
That's why I left and came back. I'm trying to get my audio working, which I have no idea why it's not working.
Okay, well, let me know when you can hear me and I'll just keep talking. So for you guys that are watching and listening, if you're not familiar with this, you guys may have heard about Matthew Perry, the guy from Friends, the star from Friends. What did he die of? He died from a ketamine overdose. You may not know what ketamine is. Ketamine is actually what they use to put you under when they do surgery. So can you hear me now? Nope, I guess you can't hear me now. Breathe. So
got it. I hear you now. Sorry
okay.
So much. It was a problem on my end.
Okay. No problem. So I'm just talking about the difference. As I asked you the question, you didn't hear me. I was just telling people about the list of medications or plant medicines that I've understood. I talked about, okay, we got ketamine, which obviously Matthew Perry overdosed on, marijuana, right. LSD, psilocybin, which is mushrooms, ayahuasca, DMT, which is also in ayahuasca, from what I understand.
There are different forms of DMT, by the way.
Yep, Cambo, MDMA, which is also known as Molly or ecstasy, and of course, like you said, peyote. So the question I asked you that you couldn't hear me about was the difference between plant and psychedelic medicines and how they differ from traditional medications.
In my view, plant medicine work is kind of medicine for the soul. A lot of people look at it as stuff to help mental health and to help you feel better. But that's just a piece of it. And really, it's about healing the soul. To get there, we have to sometimes heal the emotional body, we have to heal the mental body, we have to heal the physical body. But ultimately, it's a spiritual practice because it opens us up to subtle energies. It opens us up to things. They call it non-ordinary states of reality.
Oh, can you go deeper on that?
Sure, it's a term.
Some people refer to it as tripping. How do we differentiate between tripping and?
I would say, to me, tripping is a very recreational sort of term, and a very recreational thing. And it's just like going out, having a good time, seeing pretty colors, taking it all in. But you're not really delving into your soul, your psyche. And with plant medicine work, when you're doing it seriously, it's about what are all these unconscious patterns that have been running us our whole life that don't really serve us? What is going on inside of us that we don't value ourselves? Why are we not taking care of ourselves? Why are we not, why are we putting up with relationships that don't honor us and serve us? Right. And so it's really about diving a little bit deeper in that. For me, nothing else has really helped me to do it. Now, again, the experience is one thing, but the real gold in doing this work is the integration. It's how we take the experiences, the feelings, the insights, and the things that happen while we're on the medicine and integrate that now into our daily life so that we live a better life, because that's ultimately what it's all about.
Amen. Can you give us an example of maybe of a couple of times that you've done it, or maybe somebody that you know have done it? How do you do that integration? How do you go from maybe start from the plant medicine that you tried, and then that experience and what the after effect was, kind of like I shared with Cambo?
So, for myself, it's been many things. One of the things, my wife always say this to me, is in the beginning, I was kind of very good at feeling the good feeling stuff, but I wasn't so good at feeling the not so good feeling stuff. Like, the pain.
Like Mother Ayahuasca when she's mad.
Yeah. And so by doing this work and being gentle with myself, I've learned to be able to, and again, I still got more work to do. I'm not saying by any stretch of the imagination that I'm perfect.
Right.
But I can hold the fear better. I can hold the discomfort better.
The fear of what?
Good question. Fear of what? Could be fear of anything. Just the uncomfortable emotions I'm able to hold and sit with for a longer period of time and allow my nervous system to process it and get me through to the other side. Like before, I'd be like, I got to get out of this. I got to get out of this. What do I got to do to feel better? And now I can actually make space for it. And now I could say, what is the lesson here? What is this trying to teach me? What is this showing me? What's underneath these yucky feelings?
Right. So when you describe that, when you think about the idea that so many people are maybe potentially against it, do you know the history, the backstory of it? Because when I started digging into it, I've been studying this for a while. I haven't really played around with a lot of it. Like I said before, I've done the Cambo twice. I've played around with microdosing mushrooms. I accidentally over microdosed when I went camping one time, and my wife had to hold me for a minute because I was like, "Is that real?" Like I took a little bit too many, and I did not like that experience. And so she's like giving me a hug. She's like, everything's going to be okay. And I'm like, all right, cool. Thank you. But, studies of LSD back in the 60s, people often associate that with Janis Joplin and the hippie craze, but there was psychological studies that showed the benefits of that. Now the microdosing of psilocybin, they're showing the benefits of handling depression. I can say that I feel, like you said, that there's a better or a less reactionary impulse to the stress inducers that we have in our life. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of people don't even realize that LSD was on track to be considered a treatment for alcoholism in the 1950s.
Yeah.
Like I forget the gentleman's name, but the person who came up with AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, the
Bill White,
12-step
wasn't it?
program, there was a 13th step, and that was doing an
really?
LSD session because that's what helped him to kick his alcoholism. And
Wow.
these plants, these indigenous things have been around. Psilocybin has been around for millennia. They just found some a mug from ancient Egypt that had psychoactive compounds in it. They found ergo, which is the mold from which LSD is derived in ancient Greek pottery.
Wow.
This is nothing new. And there are people who, there are ways of looking at the Bible, the New Testament, the Old Testament, that some of these experiences could have been psychedelic experiences. You know, us in the community, we kind of joke around that Moses saw the burning bush and then saw the face of God. Well, the burning bush, what kind of bushes are very common in Israel? Acacia bushes. What's acacia? Acacia happens to have DMT into it. So it could have
Oh,
been a big, psychedelic experience for him.
right.
So this has been, I mean, the Huni Kuni tribe from the Amazon jungle in Brazil, they have a tradition of using ayahuasca going back over 3,000 years.
Whoa.
3,000 years. This is not a brand new thing overnight. This is stuff that culture has been using for centuries. Just they have learned to honor it. And you know how they say, and ayahuasca is a really interesting one because it's two different plants. It's the leaves of a bush and the bark of a vine.
Yeah.
And you need both of them to have the experience, because one of them has the MAOI inhibitor, so that the other one has the DMT, because without the MAOI inhibitor, the liver just breaks down the DMT and you don't have an experience. So you need both of them. And people have asked the tribes, like, how did you know to combine these two different plants? And they said, oh, the plants told us.
Wow.
Because they lived in harmony with nature. They lived so closely connected to nature that they actually able to get messages from the spirit of the plants, from the spirit of animals. I mean the indigenous cultures in Australia, the Aborigines, their tradition goes back like 50,000 years. They say that they used to be able to talk to rocks and plants and animals and stuff until they developed language. And once they started to develop language, they lost the ability to communicate with the other aspects of life.
Wow, that's deep. That's deep. I want to pause you right there because I have this burning question. I want to make sure I get this out. A lot of people have came to me about this, and I've had this situation too. Fortunately, I know Linda, who knows people. So if I want to go have an experience, I can trust who she knows. But what should somebody consider and know about trying plant medicine before they go do it? Like, what should they, like, I know, like she told me, she goes, I haven't done ayahuasca. I've done research on it. It scares the living hell out of me to think about doing that, but it also excites me for what's on the other side of it. And she says, it'll call to you. She goes, you'll feel that calling like you did with the candle. You're like, okay, I need to go do this. I need to have this experience. So what should people consider before trying plant medicine and psychedelics for the first time? And perhaps what second part to that question is, how do you recommend them finding that source? Because truth, it's not legal. And so
Yes.
there are people out there practicing it and not very good at it. I know my friend goes down to, I think it's Peru, and also goes down to, I think, Costa Rica, and they have this beautiful setup and scenery, which is something I want to do. And it's not that expensive. So what do you think somebody should do before trying it? And then how should they find that opportunity to try it with somebody who is a great facilitator?
Yeah. So the first thing I want to say is, ayahuasca has become a real fad. And so everyone's jumping to try ayahuasca. Ayahuasca is like, you said grandmother, she's like the queen of the plant medicines. It's a really hard plant medicine. You don't have to start there. We have this thing in our culture that like we have to go for the most intense experience right away, right off the bat. It's okay to dip your toe in the water. You can do the lighter stuff first.
Microdose,
you can do stuff to build up to it. But I mean, I'm really glad that you asked this question, because there's so many people who they did a couple of mushroom trips and now they think they can facilitate it and they have no background, no training.
Shroommology.
Nice.
That's what I mean. I get that online. It's Shroommology. They're microdose, and it tells you how to microdose. And Yeah.
Right. But microdosing is very different. But the thing is, first, you should really check out the facility. Like, it's always good to look for a recommendation, someone who's actually worked with the person, but then don't take your friend's word for granted. Like, ask the facilitator some questions, meet with them first, and just see, do you get a good feeling from them? Are they part of a lineage?
What questions should they ask?
So are you part of a lineage? How long have you been doing your own work? How long have you been facilitating? What kind of support do you have before or after the group? Is there community? Are there other people I can connect with? How and really just some basic questions like that. How long have you been doing this? What's your experience? Have you ever worked with someone like me? And yeah, like, don't just talk to
What
one
should I
person.
expect?
What should I expect? But don't just talk to one person. Talk to 2 to 3 or 4 or 5 people and see who resonates with you, because they might all be good, but they might not be right for you. Like, there are certain people who you just know you connect with, you can relate to them, they relate to you, you feel safe with them. Safety is a
That's a key
really
one.
big concern, because there are so many people who are doing things in a very unsafe way out there. And, educate yourself. I mean, that's why I agreed to talk about this with you, because I don't normally talk about this stuff so publicly, but I really want to educate people. I want people to have a safe experience. And you can, but just be mindful. Don't go rushing into things without asking a few questions first.
Right. And thank you for sharing that. And what type of modalities have you tried, or what do you recommend for different situations? You talked about the experience of having there, like there's different, I like that, the heart or whatever it is, but talk to us maybe about a couple of the popular ones and what they do for you, like the DMT versus the psilocybin versus the LSD versus the, ketamine. I mean, I don't know if you had any experience with ketamine. My friend did ketamine.
Yeah.
I know the facilitator. She's in Austin. She's a beautiful person. He described it to me, and frightening. He says, basically, I was trapped in my own body for 30 minutes. He goes, my body couldn't move. He goes, I was forced to deal with my thoughts. And that sounded more excruciating than ayahuasca. I don't know if that's necessarily the experience. I haven't done any research on it, because after he told me that, I was like, fuck that.
Yeah. No,
but there's still an aspect that I am attracted to experience that, if that doesn't sound strange.
So ketamine is the only federally legalized psychedelic, although psilocybin is legalized in Oregon and Colorado.
It's getting close. Yep.
And I look at all these different medicines as where do they fall on the spirit wheel of heart, body, mind, and spirit, right? So MDMA, Molly, ecstasy, that's heart. Those are heart medicines, heart openers. Things like psilocybin and LSD are both mind and spirit. They're kind of mind, but they can also take you to spirit. Ayahuasca is spirit. Peyote is heavy duty spirit, though I personally think white people should not do peyote. We should leave peyote for the Native Americans, because it's getting harder and harder to grow, and they're really worried about having enough for their grandchildren to be able to carry on the traditions. So I advise people in general, you stay away from peyote. Leave it for the Native Americans. And there's so many more.
That's what I've seen.
And with DMT, there's NN-DMT, there's 5-MeO DMT, there's 4-ACO DMT, which is a long-lasting form of DMT. And they're all different experiences. And DMT also is kind of mind, but can be spirit too. But to me, it's actually not that important, like which medicine you're doing. It's what's the community you're stepping into. Who's the facilitator? Who are the people in the community? Do you feel safe with them? And if you I know a lot of people who do MDMA and psilocybin together, which makes a nice combination. What kind of practice does the person have? Like before I got into plant medicine work, I was an energy healer. I was working with people. My wife is a psychotherapist. Wow. We both had healing work under our belt. I mean, my wife is a professional at it, but we both had healing work under our belt before we got into plant medicine work. So we have a slightly different perspective on things. And I think having someone who has more than just, oh, I went down to Peru, or I went down to Costa Rica, and I did a bunch of that stuff. I mean, I went down to Peru last November. It was a great experience. Doing plant medicine in the land where it comes from is such a beautiful experience.
Yeah.
But there
What
were
was that like? Can
people.
you go deep into that for a second? Can you describe that experience? And so I want people to really kind of feel that have no idea about this, what that is like. Because like my friend I've had a bunch of people explain to me ayahuasca and Mother Ayahuasca, visiting them, good experiences, very bad experiences. What was that for you? I mean, talk to us about a little bit more deep on that.
Well, for me, it was a very good experience. It wasn't my first experience with ayahuasca, but it was my first experience in Peru. And when you get to Peru and you go down into the Sacred Valley, the energy of the land holds you in a certain way that just the energy of where you are doesn't hold you in the same way up here in the north. And so I call it dancing with grandmother ayahuasca. So when you dance with her, that dance, there was probably, I don't know, 25 something people there. My
Wow.
experiences were relatively good, but other people had really challenging experiences. And what came to me in
Do we
the
want to
last,
talk about those?
people were dealing with a lot of, I don't know, people were dealing with addiction issues. They were dealing with tremendous loss. They were dealing with abuse and neglect. Those things can be very challenging to deal with. And especially if you don't have the support afterwards of working with a professional therapist or a professional integration person who can really support you through the process, like that's really important. So, and like for me, what was really interesting about it was after the fourth ceremony, I was kind of like being down on myself a little bit. I'm like, I'm here having a great time, feeling really good. I don't get it. I came down here to do deep work. I want to unwind unconscious patterns and do all this stuff. How come, like, I'm not getting there? And on the last night, the medicine came to me. It's like, no, you didn't come down here to do deep work. You came down here to fill up your cup. And that's actually what happened. I filled up my cup with all these good experiences so that when I came back, then everything started coming up. Then the big processes happened. Then the stuff I did afterwards, like, took me into very deep, very challenging places. So it's important to have an intention, but you want to hold your intention lightly, because sometimes the medicine is a lot smarter about where we are in our process than we are. And so when we hold it lightly, then we can just be present to whatever our process is in the moment and take it without any judgment. And having an experienced facilitator, an experienced guide is really important to help you to do that.
It is. I mean, and thank you for sharing that. You said deep challenges. Can you go a little bit deeper into that? Like, what does that look like for somebody? Because I mean, for you, like for your personal experience, if you don't mind sharing, how is
Sure.
that able to give you a different perspective? Because what we're really talking about here is being able to shift our perspective about the interaction we have with life and our interaction with our emotions. And that's what I think about it. I think about it is it's giving me a different way to respond to the stimulus that's going into my brain, where normally I would react to, oh my God, you go into that fight or flight, right? And what I've noticed, I've done the camo a couple of times. I've been microdosing mushrooms now for probably about a year. Most of it has been very subtle and very good. And it's allowed me that momentary pause to think, okay, is this really worth it? Where before the reaction would be there, the gut would be there to be like, fuck that, stop that, run from that. Now it's kind of giving me, if I have to, compartmentalize the experience, it's giving me that clarity, that further down the peace path, if you will, that I've been seeking. And so I feel that I want to continue that path. Like you said, progressively. I'm not jumping into ayahuasca. I did the mushrooms that kind of went a little bit overblown, which was in a way kind of cool, but I wasn't prepared for that. So I like what you said, to be able to go for that experience and have somebody walk you through what's going on there. But I want to go back to, what was it like for you on the other side? What was that feeling for you?
So the way I would describe it is a little bit different than just changing your perspective, although perspective shifts are very, very common on it. To me, and this is something actually ketamine is also very good for, it creates more internal space.
Yeah.
It helps us to explore our inner landscape and gives us the internal space so that we can hold something and not react to it, just like what you were describing. So like one example was I did a couple of nights of ayahuasca in February of 2020, right before the pandemic hit.
Wow.
And the first night was beautiful and colorful and intense. The second night, I was just in abject terror all night long. There was no content around it. All I could do was just breathe through it. Now, what happened
So
after?
did you know cognitively, like, okay, I know that I'm under this medicine and I know that I'm in this space,
Yeah.
but you just knew, like, I just got to ride this out.
Yes, I knew. I mean,
That's what I
by
felt with
that
the
time,
LSD.
by that time, I'd been doing medicine work about 6 years, so I had had enough experience under my belt. So I was just breathing through it, breathing through it, breathing through it. And then what happened? Then the pandemic hit. And what was so interesting is both me and my wife, because of all the work we had done, we weren't in fear as much as most of the people around us. We were actually able to be like, oh, like this is the new reality. This is what we got to do. We wear our mask. We work from home. I transitioned my internet radio station business from an in-person business to a virtual business, literally over a long weekend. My wife, after a week, started seeing people online, started learning how to do EMDR and other stuff online.
Nice.
So we didn't resist what was because we had more space and we had been through the fear and the terror beforehand. And this is to me is really the the beauty of plant medicine work is things come up and you may not even know why things come up at that time until later on, where weeks or months afterwards, then you realize, oh my God, the medicine was preparing me for what was to come so that I was able to deal with things in a much better way than I would have had I not processed all that fear, anger, resentment, whatever it was.
I think that's a really beautiful point, because you're right. You know, when I think about that time I did acid, I knew, like, I was fine the first hour of it. I was laughing and I was feeling good. It was funny because they gave me it was that paper acid. I don't know what the hell they call it, but I put it underneath my tongue and I was like, all right, I was laughing. We were having a good time. And then they're like, you feel it, Chris? And I'm like, nope. I feel kind of buzzy. I feel kind of, fuzzy, but nope. Give me another half. You feel half an hour, 45 minutes. You feel anything? I'm like, no, I feel just like an intense, I'm okay. Everything's fine. I'm not tripping out. Nothing's bad. Gave me another half a hit. And then about 45 minutes later, I was like, I just saw things just kind of like when I did the overdosing of the microdosing, although I won't say overdosing, but I just did a little too much. And all of a sudden I was like, okay, something's happening. And somebody walked out I was in an apartment and somebody walked out and said, Chris, you okay? And I said, now I'm feeling kind of weird. And then somebody went, Chris. And I knew that they were doing it. And he goes, Chris. And I was like, okay, stop messing with me. And then I heard my buddy go, don't do that. And I was like, don't do what? And I was like, uh-oh, I'm in Alice in Wonderland. And I remember like, okay, I can do this. And then it progressively got worse. And then I got to the point, it was like 3 hours later. And I said, when does this fucking shit stop? And they said, oh, you got about another 5 hours. Yeah. So I just literally, like you said, I stared. There was a clock on the stereo and I sat on the couch and I just stared at that clock. And I'm like, I got to get to 6 o'clock. And I knew in my mind that I just had to get to 6 o'clock. And then I had to go to my girlfriend's at the time, prom the next day. There's a whole story about how I shaved my mustache off because I couldn't see straight in the mirror. Oh yeah, it wasn't a pretty experience. But you're right. To say all of that is that it gives us that ability to control the space. I think that's essentially what we're saying tonight, is it gives us that ability to go, okay, I'm in a situation right now where I need to breathe through it. And it's going to take some time. The pandemic's going to take some time. My marriage is going to take some time. My job is going to take some time. My financial rebuild is going to take some time. My health is going to take some time. I've got the ability now to control that response to it. I've got that ability to say, you know what, rather than fight it, rather than to want to change it right now, I have the ability to be able to be patient and know that the outcome is going to be okay. Is that fair enough to say?
Yeah, absolutely. And but I also want to bring up something, because what you just said about your LSD experience kind of brings up something I want to mention to people. And that is, not every medicine is for everybody.
That's true.
Like some people do great on ketamine, other people have horrible experiences on ketamine. Some people do great on LSD, some people do lousy on LSD. If some people do great on Molly or MDMA, some people do lousy on MDMA. So don't think like just because you have one bad experience with one type of medicine that all the other types of medicine are bad for you. Again, this is the importance of working with a facilitator who has a breadth of experience, who can guide you and say, like, oh, that's just not your medicine. You need more heart medicine, or you need more spirit medicine, not mind medicine. And that's where, or body medicine, to get you more in your body, like San Pedro is a very body medicine. So, having someone who has the experience, and there's actually, I look around and I can't believe it. I've been doing this work now about 10 and a half years, and there are not that many people who've been doing it as long as I have. Like, I know some people who've been doing it 20, 25, 30 years, but most people I meet these days, they have 5 years or less experience with psychedelics. So that's not a lot. That's not a lot.
No.
So you want to, know that the person you're working with has been around the block a few times, has some experiences under their belt. You know what I mean?
It's true. Have you personally done ketamine?
Yes. I did the lozenge.
What was that experience like? I'm curious to get your take.
So I did the lozenge. I didn't do the IV, the injection. But even the lozenge,
did the IV. So I didn't even know there was a lozenge.
Yeah. That's my wife who does ketamine assisted psychotherapy. They get lozenges. It's a different experience. But I did I think a pretty high dose, and I'm fairly sensitive to medicine now. For me, it was. Ketamine is a very what's called a dissociative, where basically it actually takes you out of your body. You said before, someone said that you were trapped in their body. It's actually the opposite. I felt more like out of my body, kind of in space, and just, it was kind of in a way like LSD, but not really LSD. It was more a very expansive, very sort of not grounded, but flying up in the air and just being able to feel things and see things from a 360-degree range.
So you didn't feel claustrophobic, like you were. Okay, because that's the way he described it. He said he just knew, like, he couldn't move his body, and kind of in the same way you were saying it. But and so is that from the lozenge, or is that from the IV, or is that both?
It could be from either, but not being able to move the body is because you're disassociated from the body. Like, I was just lying there in bed. I wasn't moving at all, but I didn't want to move. I didn't care to move. I was just like, wow, this is cool. So I went with the experience. And part of the challenge that a lot of people have is surrendering to the medicine, whatever the kind of medicine, whether it's ketamine or something else. And because we all want to keep control, we all think we need to stay in control. And as long as control is an issue for us, there's going to be some tension with the medicine. There's going to be some back and forth. It's going to be challenging. But when you can just surrender to the medicine and just let it take you where it's going to take you, it is such a smoother, easier, beautiful experience. It's not always pleasant. It's not always nice. Like, I remember one time I had an intention before doing medicine of I wanted to be one with the universe. And what did the medicine show me? All these horrible things of war and people dying and destruction and rotting bodies and stuff. And I didn't understand, like, why is it showing me all this? It wasn't like, I didn't have an emotional response to it. It was just very visual, but I was just confused. And then afterwards, when I was integrating, I realized, to be one with everything is to be one with everything, even war and violence and rotting bodies and death and all of that. It's all a part of the universe. It's all a part of life. So, sometimes we got to be a little careful with our intention, because the medicine, it doesn't always, but it can give us exactly what our intention is. But if we're not careful with our framing around the intention, it can surprise us.
Very beautifully said. It's this has been an amazing conversation. I realize we've already been going for 50 minutes. I promise to keep these under an hour. Sam, this has been so valuable. I know personally that people are going to want to reach out to you. I know that they can reach out to you at theconsciousconsultant.com. Do you want to spell that out? I mean, for the people that are listening on the podcast, consciousconsultant.com. They can also get a hold of you on your email, sam@theconsciousconsultant.com. Is there any other site that you want to promote or any other way that people can get a hold of you?
The only other thing I would say is I have my own talk radio show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, and I actually have interviewed several elders in the psychedelic industry, and I've done many episodes on it, and I've got some great people coming up for next year, including Dr. Rick Strausman, who's he testifies before Congress about MDMA and all that kind of stuff. So that would be the only other thing. The Conscious Consultant Hour. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, on all the podcasting apps. I'm all over the place.
Awesome. Can you do me a favor after the show in the Facebook comments? Can you post some of those links to those particular interviews so people who are watching right now or listening right now can go to my social media and they'll can pick out those episodes and be able to watch those?
Absolutely.
I appreciate you so much, my friend. This has been a tremendous experience for myself. I knew I was going to get a lot out of this because it's part of my spiritual growth, and I have found a lot of value out of that, and I want to keep pushing myself. So I definitely will be talking with you more about this personally, one-on-one. Darlene has been commenting so graciously during the conversation. Thank you so much, Darlene. She says, guess I will be going over and following Sam. Thanks for your time tonight. Great show. So much value. Darlene said, she goes, I need my medicine for all 3-4 mind, heart, body, and soul. I feel you, sister. It's true. My friend Jacqueline Rose here, my kick-ass Irish sister, she says, here's the thing. Doctors will give you medicine for what ails you, but the medicine they give you causes you to get something else. So you have to give you something else for that vicious cycle. It's so true. It's so true. So I'm going to place you backstage, Sam. Don't go anywhere so I can still have a conversation with you, but I'm just going to close out the show.
Thank you. Thank you, Christopher.
Thank you, brother. So here's what we talk about tonight, guys. We've been talking about the fact that we have to be aware. If you didn't see the top of the show, go back and watch the top of the show. I kind of opened it a little bit funny so you can see that. If you're listening to the show, you can always check out the show. It's on YouTube, youtube.com/the Christopher Rausch, Rausch. If you can't find that, just Google #NoExcusesCoach and you'll find a shitload of stuff about me. But I started out the show talking about my own personal vulnerabilities in the fact that we have to become aware. I call it the AAA. We have to become aware. We have to accept the thing that we're aware of, right? We don't necessarily have to be responsible for it, but we have to accept, here's what it is. Here's my financial situation. Here's my marriage situation. Here's my career situation. Here's my health situation. Here's my whatever situation. Awareness. I'm not going to run from it anymore. I'm not going to go to my short-term gratifications. I'm not going to go to my Netflix or my shopping or whatever fucking addiction you have. Right? I deal a lot with people who are addicted to shit. They're addicted to the vicious cycle of negative self-talk. Everybody's addicted to something. And so when you become aware of that, number one, number two, you accept it and say, okay, it is what it is. 5 powerful words. I tell all my coaching clients, it is what it is. Like Sam and I were talking about, when you're in that situation, if you could tell yourself, it is what it is. Right? There's a pandemic. It is what it is. I can't go out and see people. It is what it is. What can I do differently? I don't need to control the situation. I need to understand and accept that this is part of the process of my life. And this is what I teach my coaching clients, is to realize that everything that has happened to you happened for you, not to you. And is all of it is preparing you for what's next. How beautiful is that? Right? When you think about the trials and tribulations in your life, did you learn something from that? Of course you did. But do you really learn when things are easy and things are going smoothly? No. So in a way, we should be thankful and grateful for those challenging experiences, because that's the opportunity for us to sit there and go, whoa, something's happening here that I could learn from. Here's something that's happening that I can't run away from. I can't run away from my negative health. I can't wait. So many people sit there and say, I don't have time to exercise. I don't have time. I don't have money to eat good. But do you have the time later to go to the doctor's appointments? Do you have time to take the medications? Do you have the money to spend on the medications rather than taking care of your health now? So we got awareness. We've got acceptance. Then we got the third one. Guess what it is? Action. Action. Do something. right? I became aware that I have let my health go a little bit, right? I'm still in really good shape, but I've let myself go. Even at 55 years old, I should be getting in better shape as I get older. I should not be sitting there going, you know what? It's no big deal. 6 months ago, I had a flat stomach, right? I could take my shirt off in public. Not so much right now. I have to suck it in. And I also realized that I had gone lighter on my workouts. I went for a pretty fast walk the other day. And I realized, holy shit, I've been doing more weight exercises and building my muscles, but I've not been doing my cardio. My blood pressure's gone up. And so I went out for a brisk walk without the dog, which I walk the dog. And so I have to go slower. And I was walking, I was huffing. I was like, holy shit, it's only been 8 minutes. And I looked down at my heart rate and it was like 108. And so I told myself, Chris, this is not acceptable. Like I said at the top of the show, my friend Bob Donnell would always say, when it becomes acceptable, it becomes inevitable. Let me say that again. When it becomes acceptable, it becomes inevitable. So as part of that awareness and a part of that acceptance, right? When did it become acceptable to be overweight? When did it become acceptable to be shitty with my finances? When did it become acceptable to spend 5 hours on social media? When did it become acceptable to become a doormat for my spouse? When did it become acceptable to be an asshole to people? Right? It's not acceptable. So you make that awareness, you accept the situation, and you take that action. You go, fuck that. So literally on my dry erase board, it says goal, get stronger mentally, physically. And my second goal is to get organized because I've let clutter invade my life a little bit. Not a pack rat or anything, but I've just got shit that I don't need. And so it's causing my mind a little distraction. So we get aware of that. When you get that clarity, right? This is what I teach my clients. And that's what I have my clients do is you progressively start taking that action. Your confidence builds. And then you want to take more action. You're like, let me do this. Let me do this. Let me see how strong I can get. Let me see how healthy I can get. Oh my God, I'm getting fucking clarity, right? Go back and watch the top of the show. I talked about some of the things I've been going through. I'm not going to repeat them here. Go back and listen to the top of the show. So this is my invitation for you guys. We're coming up on the end of the year. We got 2025 coming up. I have a group accountability coaching program. We just had a fabulous session last night talking about 2024. My coaching clients were in there saying, oh my God, they're listing out all the things that they've done. And most people can say 2 or 3, maybe 4 things. They were into the teens. I've done this. 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 I'm like, how do you feel? Like, I feel a sense of pride. I feel a sense of accomplishment. I feel like I can do more. That I didn't think I was this capable, but now I'm so much more capable. I'm excited about what's next. So if you're interested in doing that and not having regrets at the end of the year and having regrets at the end of your life, hit me up. It's a gift to yourself, right? What can you give somebody for Christmas? You can give them a spot in my group accountability coaching program. I'll put the link in the show notes. Reach out to me if you want a free coaching session. We can make the difference happen. But by all means, please connect with Sam. Please consider your own plant medicine journey. But again, like we've said before, and I want to stress this, and I need to do a better job of this because I've been doing a little bit on my own, is find that person and go on that experience. I need to go find that person through my friend, Dr. Linda, and go have a psilocybin experience down at the beach and have that person walk me through it and enjoy that growth, right? And if it's not for you, that's totally fucking cool. But find your modality, whether it's classical therapy, whether it's meditation, whether it's binaural beats, whatever it is for you that gets you more connected to your health and your mind, body, and your soul. And let's all make this world a kick-ass place, right? So please support the podcast, rawandunscripted.com. If you're not subscribed to the audio podcast, you can find it anywhere, just like you can find Sam's. Continue your personal journey. Thank you so much, guys, for watching live or watching on the replay. I know a lot of people watch on the East Coast in the morning. And Darlene says this. I'll finish it out with this. She goes, feel you, brother. All right, let's do this. Let's not have regrets at the end of our life. Let's continue to push ourselves. I will continue to push myself and be honest with you guys. And let's just make sure that we make a difference in what it is that we're doing. All right. I love you guys. See you here next Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Every single week we do this live video cast with you guys so you can have an engagement with us. I love you guys. Be peaceful, and we'll see you next time.